Now that The Last of Us Season 1 is wrapped up, I can now finally talk about my full thoughts on the show. And my thoughts on the show laid out bare is that it's simply not as good as the game, but it's still great. And pretty much in this video, I guess what I'm just going to be doing is explaining what the game did better, and also what I think the show did better. And without wasting any more of your time, the first thing I want to talk about is the main two acting performances. First, I think Pedro Pascal did a good job as Joel. Was he as good as Troy Baker? Not at all. And if you think he was, respectfully, I don't respect your opinion. There were moments where I felt his line delivery was kind of off.
Find someone else.
There is no one else.
Listen, you were gonna show me where.
Find someone else.
There is no one else.
Take me to her. You take me to her right now!
Let me go.
Let me go.
Please.
You just come after her.
You just come after her.
I'm sorry, bro. I can't be the only one that's laughing at that shit. I also wasn't a big fan of how his country accent was like there for half of the show, and then the other half of the show, his country accent just kind of went away at times. I just found that really weird and off-putting. But the most important thing to me is that he actually felt like the character he was playing, for the most part. So I do think he did a good job in the role. He just wasn't as good as Troy Baker. And for Bella Ramsey, pretty much the same story, just I don't think she was that great. Rarely throughout the show did she ever feel like Ashley Johnson's Ellie to me, which sucks because Ellie is my favorite character in The Last of Us games. Is Ellie still well written in this show? Yes, I think she is. But the main differentiator to me was the personality she conveyed. Now, how do you convey a character's personality? Well, the first thing is through line delivery. So does she hit on that front?
It's light on the reading, but it has some interesting pictures.
No.
Light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Step back. That's not for kids.
How do you even walk around with that thing?
Please get rid of it.
Who's your horses? I want to see what all the fuss is about. Whoa!
How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Who's your horses? I want to see what all the fuss is about.
Why are all these pages stuck together?
Oh, why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you.
I'm just fucking with you.
Tommy knows this area.
Oh,
better
fuck.
than- Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of? That I'm gonna end up like Sam? I can't get infected. I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be doing all right so far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
I'm not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm not her, you know. Maria told me about Sarah and...
No.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost people too.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I've lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me.
Everybody I have cared for has either died or left me.
Everyone fucking except for you.
Everybody fucking except for you!
So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
So don't tell me that I'd be safe with somebody else, because the truth is, I would just be more scared.
Ashley Johnson's line delivery sounds so much more natural, and whenever Bella Ramsey is doing the same lines of dialogue, it just sounds forced and weird. The line delivery just never sounds the same. They may be saying the same words, but Ashley Johnson's shit just feels so much more natural. The best way I can describe it is Ashley Johnson doesn't feel like she's acting. She just feels like Ellie, while Bella Ramsey feels like she's acting, and it literally just feels like she's reading words off of a script. I feel the same way about Bella Ramsey's Ellie as I do about Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker acts nothing like Peter Parker from the comics, and his Spider-Man barely makes any jokes, so I just do not like him that much in the role of Spider-Man, because he just does not feel like Spider-Man to me. And like I mentioned earlier, I feel the same way for some of Pedro's line delivery as well. The next way to convey a character's personality is through dialogue, and I'm not going to go through the show and pick apart every line of dialogue, but I will show you a character moment in a moment that's actually missing dialogue, and this moment completely pissed me off.
It's okay. It's over. We're not fighting anymore.
This is not Ellie. This is Ellie.
I shot the hell out of that guy, huh?
Yeah, you sure did.
I feel sick.
And you just hang back like I told you to.
Well, you're glad I didn't, right?
I'm glad I didn't get my head blown off by a goddamn kid.
You know what? No. How about, hey, Ellie, I know it wasn't easy, but it was either him or me. Thanks for saving my ass. You got anything like that for me, Joel?
Ellie has no real experience in what life was like before the outbreak. She was born into a world where quarantine zones, military occupation, and zombies are all normal. And when she's taken out into a world that she's never seen before, unlike Joel, she's excited by things, she's optimistic, she's very curious, and she's constantly asking questions, and she always wants to talk about her feelings, almost as a coping mechanism to try and process this new world that she's just been thrown into. So when I see a moment like this, it completely blows my shit. Ellie would never have this situation and then just be silent about it. It's why this moment was done so much better in the game. Just to sum up her performance, I just wasn't a fan of her line delivery, as I've outlined. Some of her character moments in the dialogue just seems off throughout the show. But I do give her a little bit of credit because she does do a pretty good job at Ellie's subtle mannerisms sometimes, mostly in the sarcastic aspect of Ellie's personality. But overall, I do think she gave a good acting performance. It's just for the character she's playing, I just think she was okay in the role. And to the people out here reaching badly just to defend Bella Ramsey, please do everyone who's played the game a favor and just shut the fuck up. I'm gonna show y'all a couple examples of comments I've seen regarding this bullshit. She literally sounds just like Ashley Johnson / Ellie. First of all,
why are all these pages stuck together?
Oh. Why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you.
I'm just fucking with you.
Are you fucking deaf? She not only sounds nothing like her, but she also talks like she has a fucking cough drop in her mouth.
I'm just fucking with you.
And regarding the mannerisms part, like I said, I think she was doing a pretty good job at the sarcastic aspect of Ellie's personality, but she's nowhere near perfect or anywhere near as good as Ashley Johnson. And now we get into some really stupid territory. I think Bella is a better Ellie than Ashley Johnson. The reason I'm mad at people I've seen saying this dumb shit is because not only is it a flat out brain dead take, it's because Ashley Johnson is so far beyond Bella Ramsey, it's like, it's legitimately disrespectful to say that they're on the same level, let alone being better. Like, fuck out of here. And then right under this comment, I see probably the worst reach of them all. She looks identical to Ashley Johnson.
Are you retarded?
To take this in for a moment, not only is this person the living embodiment of Helen Keller, but also more than 2,000 people saw this comment and said, yeah. Like, there's defending someone from hate and then there's shit like this. Please stop reaching. You can like her in the role, but to say she even comes remotely close or is on the same level or is better than Ashley Johnson, that's just flat out disrespectful. Ashley Johnson is legitimately leaps and bounds ahead of her. It's like trying to say that Tobey Maguire is a better Spider-Man than Yuri Lowenthal. It's just flat out wrong and it's not even fucking remotely close. But moving on from the acting performances, I want to go back to episode 4, and this is the episode that really pissed me off, and it's like my major criticism with this show. As we all know, Joel is a closed off person. Slowly throughout the game, he starts to get more comfortable and opens himself up to Ellie. And when we finally reach the point to see their relationship progress, it's beautiful and it feels earned. We see them going through the whole mission of going through Bill's town and working together. We see more of Ellie's great personality aspects in her interactions with Bill, and how she will stand up for herself and she doesn't take shit from anyone. She's quick to defend herself, and if someone insults her verbally or physically, she will bark back. But like I said, we get to see them go through the whole Bill mission together where their relationship grows. We get to see them go through this whole bandit-ridden city together where their relationship grows. We see them get separated from each other and having to get back to one another. And we see how once Ellie is separated from Joel, she's terrified. And this goes deeper into Ellie having to face her fears of being alone. And it shows her independent survival instinct, which is not only a beautiful translation of her fear and worry throughout the game of being alone, but it also translates later into the winter segment. And she gets back to Joel on her own, and she's actually the one that saves him. And Joel still acts like Joel after this whole scenario. But then after a little more time, he starts to put a little bit more faith in Ellie. He gains a subtle respect for her that he just didn't convey in the moment. And then later he conveys this to Ellie. At this point, we've seen them go through so much already with each other, so when Joel starts to make this progression as a character, it feels earned and way more fleshed out. While in the show, this entire period is cut down to a short walking segment with no conflict, a trip to Bill's house where again, they faced no conflict, and then we go for a car ride where again, there is no conflict. And then we get to the city city and they barely go through any of what they went through in the game. And not only do they make Joel look like a bitch, but after Ellie shoots this guy, she turns into a completely different character. This is not Ellie. This is Ellie. And one of Ellie's biggest personality traits is that she's wanting to talk about things and be emotionally open. This is completely stripped away in this moment. And instead, Joel is the one that opens up and wants to talk about the situation.
You shouldn't have had to, you know.
Well, you're glad I did, right?
You're just a kid. You should know what it means to... It's not like you killed him. But... shooting or... I know what it's like. First time that you hurt someone like that. If you, well, I'm not good at this.
Yeah, you really aren't.
I mean, it was my fault. You shouldn't have had to. And I'm sorry.
The relationship has not only progressed to this point way too early, and it's rushed, but Joel does not act like this. He didn't act like this in the show literally like an episode before.
If I'm taking you with me, there's some rules you gotta follow. Rule 1, you don't bring up Tess, ever. Matter of fact, we can just keep our histories to ourselves. Tommy's what we used to call a joiner. Dreams of becoming a hero. So he enlists in the army right out of high school. A few months later, they ship him off to Desert Storm. That's what they called that war, it doesn't matter. Point is, being in the army didn't make him feel much like a hero. Cut to 12 years later, outbreak happens. He convinces me to join a group making their way up to Boston, which I did. Mostly to keep an eye on him, keep him alive. That's where we met Tess. And that whole crew, well, for what it was, it worked. And then Tommy meets Marlene. She talks me to join in the Fireflies. Same mistake he made when he was 18.
He goes from saying this,
If I'm taking you with me, there's some rules you gotta follow. Rule 1, you don't bring up Tess, ever. Matter of fact, we can just keep our histories to ourselves.
to then not only talking about his history, but then opening up to Ellie about his feelings. It is not only out of character for both characters, but it's their relationship being rushed. And I hated this. Now that I've got my biggest gripes with the show out of the way, I'm just gonna talk in a little bit more less detail. Pretty much my general consensus for the show is that it did some things different, and it did some things pretty much bar for bar, word for word. The first episode I genuinely felt was a step up from the game. The opening scene was absolutely phenomenal. It set such a brilliant tone for the episode and the rest of the show, and I just loved the way they were talking about the infection. It also gave a bit more depth to Sarah, and it gave just a bit more insight on what Joel's life was like before the outbreak. This episode is beautiful. It felt new, it felt fresh, and it also felt true to the source material in a good way. The second episode I also thought was a slight step up. Not like anything crazy, just subtly, mainly because it's pretty much the exact same thing. Just I think the opening scene with the fungal scientist, I just love these two opening scenes in both episodes. They had so much depth to the world building, and it really just sets the tone so well. For the third episode, I'm kind of on the fence about now. At first, I thought it was better than the game, but after further review, I'm not too sure on that anymore. Mind you, I absolutely loved this episode. It's a 10 out of 10 in my book, and if it was like a 2-hour long original movie, I would easily watch that shit. This story was beautiful, and by the end of the episode, it gave a perfect ending showing us the parallel between Bill and Joel, and it shows us what Joel's wants are, being to fulfill his promise to Tess, and it also shows us his inner needs, in the sense that he needs to find something to keep fighting for and come back to a sense of humanity with. For Bill, it was Frank, and for Joel, we know who it is. But what this episode takes away from us is a great segment of conflict that adds to the development of Joel and Ellie's relationship. And like I outlined earlier, it takes away from the great character moments that Ellie has with the back and forth banter between her and Bill. And honestly, if it wasn't for how rushed episode 4 was, I think episode 3 would have been a step in the right direction from the game. But due to the fact that this episode takes away so much time that could have been spent to flesh out Joel and Ellie's relationship, and after this episode they just completely rushed their progression of their relationship, I kind of don't hold this opinion anymore. Like I said, I thought episode 3 was better because it gave us a great story and it showed us the great parallel between Bill and Joel, and it also had some great world building. But I think episode 4 really ruins what episode 3 could have gave us if they would have just, actually taken the time to flesh out Joel and Ellie's relationship. I believe now that the game just did it overall better. Episode 4, don't really need to talk about it. I've already talked about it. I was genuinely pissed at this episode. I fucking hated it. And for episodes 5 through 9, it was just pretty much the same story we've already seen, just told worse and not as fleshed out in some areas. That's not to discredit the show, as I think these episodes were all great. They just aren't as great as the game. Episode 5 didn't really do anything better than the game. I think they spend way too much time on these characters in this city, and I just didn't care for any of them. Episode 6, the only thing I liked more was the conversation that Ellie had with Maria. I absolutely hated how they took out a moment like this.
Joel. Oh man, they were coming in from every direction. Then Maria was like, "We gotta run!" And so we dove over these tables, and this huge guy blasted with a shotgun.
Slow down. Listen, hey, are you hurt?
No.
This was a great character moment between Joel and Ellie, and just another moment that just builds their relationship. Like, Ellie just got out of a shootout, and she's coming up to Joel like a kid that just is all excited, like she just got out of a sports game, and she wants to tell her parents everything that just happened. Like, it was just such a great moment, and I don't know why they wouldn't add something like this. Also, this moment hits nowhere near as hard. Not only does Ellie running away in the game add more urgency and tension to this, like, situation, but Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker's performances are better, and the show kind of just reworks the dialogue from the game, and the dialogue just ends up being worse in the show. Episode 7, again, it was pretty much the same story again, just told worse. The DLC shows us Ellie being independent and struggling on her own, trying to get medicine for Joel, while also telling us the story of what happened between Riley and Ellie. So the DLC was just better in that sense. This episode actually missed a massive opportunity to show us what it was like for Ellie to figure out she was immune for the first time, and it could have also showed us how she had to handle like shooting Riley. I genuinely can't believe they didn't add this because it was such a big missed opportunity. I don't know how they didn't think to add that. And for episode 8, I can't really say I was disappointed by this because I was kind of expecting to be disappointed. This is my favorite segment of both Last of Us games, and again, they just do this part worse in the show. Not only do they cut out a lot of the segments that show how strong Ellie can be on her own while also struggling, with the zombie rush segment, and also her killing David's men before they lock her up, which adds even more tension and a better motivation to the fact that the group wants to kill Ellie. Because while in the show, their only real motivation to kill Ellie was the fact that she was connected to Joel. While in the game, she was also killing their men, and she was also connected to Joel, so it was a better motivation to actually want to kill Ellie. So it adds more tension to when she's locked up in that cage. But also, the game gave us something that nothing else can, and that's giving us a strong gameplay connection between the player and the narrative. We go from switching to the power of Joel, and then we switch to the less powerful struggle of what it's like for Ellie. This is such a great connection between the player, gameplay, and the narrative. And also, the acting is way better in the game, and so is all the development that leads up to this point, and how this segment was overall handled. I also hate how they changed the scene right here. It was never gonna hit the same for me because I just do not see these characters the same as I do in the game, but the way they did the scene, it was just worse. Like, there's nothing, there's no argument you can make that the scene from the game wasn't better than how it was done in the show. But I did really like Troy Baker in this episode. And now, finally, the finale. I thought it was good. I have a few problems with it, and the first problem I have with it is actually a pretty big problem. So when Ellie and Joel gets flashbanged, Ellie is still conscious, and Marlene states,
Where's Ellie?
She wasn't hurt. Not even a scratch. She's mostly worried about you.
okay, but if Ellie was fine and didn't even have a scratch, then Ellie in the show should 100% know this is a straight up fucking lie.
They were running some tests on you, and some others. Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, people that are immune. Dozens of them. The doctors, they couldn't make any of it work.
It makes Joel's lie seem like even more complete bullshit than it already does. In the game, we all knew that Ellie knew that Joel might have been lying, but she couldn't know for 100% sure. But in the show, she was conscious when she was talking to Marlene, and then they drugged her without her knowing, which is what she implies right here.
The drugs are still wearing off.
I was with the Fireflies, and then... What drugs? Is Marlene okay?
But Joel says,
They were running some tests on you, and some others. Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, people that are immune.
they were running tests on you and some others. What? If that was true, wouldn't Marlene have told Ellie something like this? You know, since she talked to Marlene and she was conscious when she got to the hospital, and it would make it pretty unreasonable for the Fireflies to just drug Ellie randomly. And mind you, she realizes that they drugged her without her consent and just randomly out of nowhere, without telling her what they were doing first, especially if there was other people like her at that hospital at the same time. In the game, Ellie was passed out before she even got to the hospital, and she didn't wake up until she was in the car with Joel. So while she suspected that Joel was lying in the game, she couldn't know for sure. But in the show, Joel's story and his lie is just complete bullshit once Ellie rubs two brain cells together and uses like literally any sense of critical thinking. She won't even need to go to find the audio log like she does in the second game to figure out Joel was lying for sure. Like, Joel's lie in the show is literally only hanging on by the thread that Ellie is just stupid. And if Ellie is not completely stupid, then she will know that Joel is lying. And she should have figured that out even in at the end of the episode. Like, I don't know how you can't put those pieces together. Not only does Ellie being conscious just make Joel's lie just seem like even more bullshit, but it also removes a scene like this. This is another one of the scenes at the end of the game that just shows how far Joel has come with this relationship. He's fully come back to caring about people now. He has two random people walking up to him with guns, and he doesn't even give a fuck because he thinks Ellie might be dying. And the replacement for this moment is not only something that's way worse, not only in the scene execution, but also also in the fact that the game developed this relationship a lot more, but the changing of making Ellie conscious when she gets to the hospital makes it once again so that Joel's lie would only be believed by someone who can't fucking think with their brain. This was such a stupid decision by the writers, and I just cannot understand why they would do this. But anyways, I love the scene with Ellie's mom, aka the real Ellie. I thought this scene was great, and it added even more depth and emotion to Marlene's decision to sacrifice Ellie, and it gives us more depth into like Ellie's immunity. And I also love that this scene was a callback to episode 3 when Joel and Ellie are talking about this.
How'd you get that scar on your head? What? Is it something lame? Like you fell down the stairs or something?
I didn't fall down any stairs.
Okay, so what then?
Someone shot at me and missed.
See, that's cool. Shoot back?
Yeah.
You get him?
No, I missed too. It happens more often than you think.
And then in the finale that he reveals that mark is from him trying to off himself. I thought this was great, but again, due to the underdevelopment of Joel and Ellie's relationship and the countless missing character moments, no matter how big or small, moments like when she finally learned how to whistle.
Are you all right?
I'm trying to learn how to whistle. I'm whistling.
Oh, good. Something else you can drive me crazy with.
Moments like when Ellie is asking Joel about an ice cream truck.
What is this?
Oh, this is an ice cream truck.
An ice cream truck?
Yeah, Henry told me about these. They sell ice cream out of the truck.
What? No way. Joel?
That's true. This thing would drive around and play real loud, creepy music, and kids would come running out to buy ice cream.
You're totally fucking with me.
Serious.
Man, you lived in a strange time.
Moments like when Ellie is wanting to try darts. Moments like asking how hydroelectricity works. These types of things seem like small details, and they are small details, but it's these types of small details that add so much to the character and how she takes in this new world. And there's just a lot more great moments between Joel and Ellie's relationship as well that just weren't in the show. And it's these small moments throughout the levels of the game where Joel and Ellie's relationship grows so much and it's fleshed out so much more and so much better, which is just magic that this show could never even hope to recapture fully. But that's the beauty of video games in my eyes. They have certain strengths that they can capture that movies and TV shows can't, like the little details, while the strength the show would have is like being able to show us more of what like Sarah's life is in the beginning, because games can't really do something like this segment of the show. Both mediums have things they can do better than the other, but for this case, the game is just better 90% of the time, and this is why the game was just destined to be better than the show. Better actors, better performances, better character moments that hold more impact, more character moments that hold more impact, better world building. You've got the connection of gameplay and the player, how the player feels, and that holds another connection to the narrative as well. Things like scrounging for ammo and supplies, things like being scared of zombies, things like feeling Joel is more powerful than Ellie. It's things like this that games have that nothing else has. Like, you will never feel as immersed into a story from like a movie or a TV show than you will from a video game. And one more final note that I'd just like to add in there is the fact that I feel like nobody is taking into account that like all the lack of conflict that this show has. I don't think we need an action scene every episode or an action scene every 2 minutes, but in the game there was constantly infected along our path. There was constantly bandits along our path. There was always some form of antagonism trying to stop us on this journey, and it just adds more stakes and tension to the journey, while also still giving us all those great character moments. And the atmosphere the game has just adds to that as well. This is just yet again another example of why the game is just simply better. So with all this being said, my final rating for the show is an 8 out of 10. And to those of you who are thinking, wait, you just spent all this time trashing the show and saying the game is better, to those of you thinking that right now, well, you're the people that weren't paying attention to my words throughout the video. I still think this show is great. It just had the challenge of reaching the heights of something that is pretty much perfect, being this game's story. This show still has some good development for its characters. It's still got fantastic world building. It's still got those parallels. It's still got that conflict. It's like if the game is Cinnamon Toast Crunch, the show is Cinnamon Crunch Squares. You know what I mean? Like, it's still got the same idea. It's got the same concept. It just doesn't capture the same magic as the original product. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for the show. Thank you all for watching and spending your time with my video. And yeah.